It's so hard to say goodbye to How to Get Away with Murder. I'm not crying, you're crying. Welcome back, friends. So this is going to be a video about How to Get Away with Murder's series finale titled Stay. It'll be a recap mixed in with some analysis, no predictions because the show's over, but yes, there will be spoilers. But before we get started, thank you for watching. I do release new videos weekly, so if you want to join me on my journey of reviewing all the great murder mysteries and suspense thriller TV shows on television, hit subscribe and that thumbs up to see more videos like this one. I also take my top 3 favorite comments from my last video, then feature them at the end here. So be sure to stick around for that. One last thing, if you'd like to skip my recap and then go straight to my final thoughts, you can jump to this timestamp here. Otherwise, without further ado, let's talk about the series finale that I've probably seen about 11 times. So this episode opens up on a chaotic scene unfolding in front of the courthouse. Gunshots, screaming, crying, running. Now, in the courthouse, Miss Cicely Tyson has graced us with her presence as Ophelia one last time, and she and Annalise's sister are freaking out looking for Annalise. Hashtag who killed Annalise? But that's enough of that. Rewind 3 days prior in that good old How to Get Away with Murder fashion and return to where we left things in episode 14. AK's pissed, Tegan thinks it was Burkhead, and Bonnie's freaking out. So they send Bonnie out to clean up her mess and find Frank. Hop on over to Hannah's lawyer, which I believe his name is Floyd or something, and he's leaving the Hannah crime scene and he's got a visitor. Frank's just posted up in Floyd's car with a gun, but it's cool. He just wants to talk about his mother. FYI, there's going to be a lot of jumping around in this video, so do your best to keep up. My same thoughts remain here though. I'm confident Frank didn't kill Hannah, but it wasn't Bonnie and Tegan either, which leaves one more prime suspect. But we'll get to that. We've got lots to cover. Stop trying to distract me. So Bonnie goes to Laurel's looking for Frank, and I mean, not gonna lie, that would have been my first guess too. By the way, am I the only one that forgot that Bonnie and Frank lived together? Yeah? Okay, I'll see myself out. Anyway, Bonnie and Laurel talk about Frank for the first time in what feels like ages, and it's actually a really good scene. It's almost as if Laurel is giving her consent for Bonnie and Frank to be together. Not that Bonnie needed it, but it was nice to have Laurel let go of Frank and recognize that he and Bonnie are in game. But truthfully, no one watching really thought Laurel and Frank would end up together though, right? Right? Okay, let's jump back to court. Looks like Jorge's on the stand, and remember when I said I thought Jorge would come through and testify for AK? He doesn't. He claims he never even met Burkhead or worked with the FBI, and it's Annalise, Laurel, and Tegan that are conspiring against him. And he straight up calls Tegan out as being the whistleblower, which does not go well in court. And hold on to this for later. So there that goes. Laurel's the only one that testified with the truth. Well, their slightly skewed version of the truth, but you get it. So Laurel goes to see the Keating crew at the Keating pad and they talk about the case's developments. Michaela still being Michaela, and Connor wants to tell the truth and get punished for his crimes. But don't worry everyone, it's just a joke. Ha ha ha. See? Laughter. But like I've said before, Connor's always taken this the hardest. So this scene's right in line with his character, and so does Michaela, who gets called a sociopath by Connor, by the way, which was harsh, but yeah. So Tegan and Annalise are talking about the supposed surprise witness coming in to testify against Annalise. Surprise insinuates they don't know who it is, so they take a page out of the tomfoolery rulebook and speculate as to who it could be. Again, this is a great scene between Tegan and Annalise. Now, there's a better one later, but I still wanted to call this one out. In fact, all of the scenes were great, so for future reference, imagine I say this was a great scene after I recap each one. Or don't. I don't care. I don't really run your life. Back to the scene though. Tegan thinks it's Gabriel. AK thinks it's Frank, because they still can't find him. And I love this scene because Tegan talks about how she, Bonnie, and Frank are ride or die for AK, and this just makes me happy. That's all. I really didn't want Tegan to turn out to be some sort of mole playing Annalise, so seeing how this is the last episode ever, this was confirmation of Tegan's devotion. Part 1. Part 2 is coming soon. Anyway, Annalise is freaking out about Wes's confession, the one that's been floating around all season, as it would be the nail in the coffin for AK's trial. So Annalise coincidentally vocalizes the fact that she's terrified of Wes being the surprise witness, which I mean, we've been saying it for months. Okay, I'm kidding, but back to the front of the courthouse. And they do this periodically so we can get slow reveals as to who's alive. And in this one, we get confirmation that Laurel's okay, because as she hears the gunshot, she just pieces out with a quickness. And I don't blame her. You know, get Christopher out of there. All right, so now we're back at the Keating pad, and I'm assuming this takes place after that deleted scene where Connor sees Asher in his dreams, and honestly, I'm okay with it being cut. Had I not known about it, I wouldn't have felt like I was missing anything. Anyway, Michaela and Connor are talking about this whole mess and jail time and moving on, and Michaela reveals a little more about her backstory, and I get it, she's a survivor. I feel like this was supposed to be a humanizing moment for Michaela. She talks about her foster life, cigarettes being put out on her head, not being fed, and having to fend for herself. That was her prison. She made it through that to thrive. Screw going to jail, she's been through enough. And you know what? Okay, Michaela, it gives us the explanation of why she gives zero fucks about this entire trial, and the only thing important is getting out free. Does this make everything she did last episode okay? Not in the slightest. But it does give us some insight as to why she did it, and quite frankly, this is who she's always been at her core, so you do you, boo! So speaking of Frank, and I said quite frankly, get it? Okay, so speaking of Frank, he's still with Hannah's lawyer, and they just cleaned out her safety deposit box, and there's nothing of use that can get Annalise off. So no need to worry, Frank's on our side, people. He's ride or die for AK, just like I've always said. Mostly. Then Frank threatens Hannah's lawyer dude, cause, well, Frank's got a gun. But we'll come back to this. Right now, let's check in with this court case. Governor Burkhead is now on the stand, and let me tell you, she ain't getting my vote. That's for sure. So she denies everything. The Castillos, the FBI, being involved with Nate Sr.'s death, everything. Side note to keep in mind, Nate's in the hearing currently, and he's hearing all of this. Anyway, she's lying like a dog when Frank shows up right before it's AK's turn to examine her, so they take a quick recess. Now, this is the scene where Charlie Weber really shines. We get this beautiful moment between Frank and Annalise, and you know, Frank is just a people pleaser underneath this mask of toughness, and the remover of masks is a common thread throughout this episode, and you'll see why in a bit. But in the scene with Bonnie and Laurel, masks were also lifted off. Same thing in this scene. Frank's mask is lifted and you see his vulnerability. So beautiful scene, but let's refer back to the scene where Frank threatens Hannah's lawyer dude. Turns out when there's a gun in your face and a scary man threatening to kill you, you spill little secrets. So Frank has a flash drive and it contains some information that'll give them an edge over the governor. Back to court, AK questions the governor. Now, I'll be honest, seeing how this is one of the first and only Annalise and Burkhead scenes this season, I really wanted to see Annalise bring it a little harder, but she does end up putting Burkhead in her damn place. Turns out, the flash drive contains a recording of Hannah speaking to Xavier, referring to the governor, killing Nate Sr. We also finally get concrete proof that Hannah wanted to take Annalise down for Sam's murder and didn't really like all this other involvement with the governor and Nate Sr. shenanigans. Part of me feels like Hannah was in over her head, and she definitely was, and then started losing control when the governor got involved. Now, per time constraints, I understand why they revealed it this way, but part of me also feels a little cheated because I would have loved to see an Annalise and Hannah confrontation. But who knows, maybe they couldn't get the actress back or made this decision because of time. Either way, this recording adds some doubt, and more doubt to the case against Annalise. Have I mentioned how much I absolutely hate the governor? Anyway, Nate is taking this all in, and he's got Nate Plan Eyes, which, while we're on the subject of Nate, the FBI brings him back in to sweeten his immunity deal offer. They offer him $20 million. Now, how I saw this was Burkhead feeling threatened, so she wanted to gain more control of the case. To me, this was confirmation that the governor is backed into a corner and now upping the bribery. This desperation strategy comes into play a little bit later too. Next, we head back to the courthouse with AK and Tegan, and they see Gabriel roaming around the courthouse. First off, he should be gone. Second, this could be confirmation that he's the surprise witness. If anyone has it out to get justice for Sam, it's gonna be that guy. While Annalise attempts to handle that, Tegan runs into Laurel. And we finally get an answer we've been needing to know. Looks like Sandrine is actually dead, and Jorge killed her. That's right, it was that simple. This man had his own wife murdered. All this time, we're sitting here like, Sandrine helped Wes fake his death. She's in witness protection, and maybe Laurel even killed her. Scratching on Laurel's arm? Probably just Christopher. You know how babies be scratching? Anyway, Sandrine dead, Jorge bad, and don't forget, Jorge just confirmed that he knows Tegan was the whistleblower, and if Jorge's cool just murdering his own wife, arranging to have Tegan killed would be a breeze. So Laurel and Tegan talk about this, and apparently Laurel has a secret property worth millions and is willing to give to Tegan if she does something that would protect Laurel, Christopher, and Tegan. And that is something we'll get to later. Right now, we cut to Annalise practicing for her questioning when Nate takes the stand. Now, this gets intense, and Annalise is prepared to go for the throat. It just showcases how much they've actually been through and how difficult this could actually be for her. But yeah, after that, we finally get a scene between Bonnie and Frank, and my lord, was it a touching scene. Frank has a suitcase, and keep this in mind for later, and is preparing to leave. Now, he's pissed at Bonnie for telling him about Sam and Hannah, but you know, I understand both perspectives. She didn't want to keep anything from him, but on the same point, this kind of information could destroy you. And like I mentioned in my previous video, I don't think Frank could live with this. I mean, it's one thing to be the offspring of siblings, but then to realize you murdered two of your own siblings? That'd take a heavy toll on your psyche. But Frank says he'll forgive Bonnie one day, just not today, and he leaves. And you know, like, I can't imagine the toll this is taking on Bonnie too. I'm sure she thought this would bring them closer together, doing what's right, but it did the exact opposite, and now, amongst everything else, with the trial, she's gotta deal with this too. So Frank leaves Bonnie's to go pay his little brother a visit, and I'm referring to Gabriel. So Gabriel's squatting at his old apartment when Frank offers him that suitcase I referred to before. Turns out it's filled with the leftover money Frank got for causing the accident that killed his other brother. $87,000 to be exact. He does this in order to bribe Gabriel not to testify against Annalise as the surprise witness. Although I'm still not convinced it was supposed to be Gabriel, but you know, we'll get there. Now, I absolutely loved this scene because you really see that Frank is trying to do right, and he's processing the fact that he's murdered two of his three siblings and then threatened the other. And it's breaking him, not to mention the fact that his father ordered him to kill Lila and her baby, which he does tell Gabriel. And I really love the closure between the two here, and the parallels between this and when Frank threatened Gabriel are magnificent. There's a lot of coming full circle with this finale, and I adore how they laid it out this way. So after this, we jump back to the Keating crew, and Oliver has supposedly been researching how to get Connor the same deal as Michaela, but you know, never trust Oliver. But it's a big deal because Oliver doesn't want Connor to go to jail, but Connor feels that he needs to be punished for what he did. They go back and forth in front of Michaela, mind you, which has got to be awkward, but she's on my shit list, so she can just deal with it. Then the FBI calls Connor. Apparently, and for no logical reason at all at the time, the FBI is offering the same immunity deal they gave Michaela to Connor. Now again, I think this ties into Burkhead's desperation. She's sweetening the deals to get their testimonies locked in. But there's a little more to that that's revealed a bit later. Right now, let's watch our good old buddy Nate get questioned on the stand. So remember how Nate has been coming in clutch these last few episodes? Well, he completely undid it here. Just kidding. Nate comes through. When random government lawyer dude questions Nate about being framed by Annalise for Sam's murder, Nate places the blame on Hannah. Right before we get a buff guy naked scene from Nate, you know, one last time in case you forgot, Nate was ripped as f***. But not only that, Nate also brings up the Castillos and Governor Burkhead's involvement, then drops a bombshell. Agent Murderer's, well, murderer of Asher. That's right, Nate just blew the whole FBI mole thing wide open. Next, we come to an amazing scene, and probably one of my favorites, between Nate and Annalise back at her apartment. Nate claims he'll still get the $20 million somehow, but this scene is really a goodbye from Nate to Annalise, and a big part of me thinks Ophelia played a huge role in this. You know, that scene when she went to give our good old buddy Nate a piece of her mind. Now here's the kicker though, Nate actually found Wes's written confession on Xavier, so everyone that said there was more to that scene with Nate and Xavier was spot on. So he gives it to Annalise to do with it what she will, and says goodbye with a light kiss on the cheek. Like, everything these two have been through, it's amazing to see their journey of cheating together, framing him, releasing his wife from her slow cancer death, the case with Nate's dad, then Nate's dad getting murdered, Nate beating Miller, and then just all of this. Honestly, I think this was a perfect goodbye between both of these characters. Alright, now we'll stop at a Connor and Oliver scene real quick. So Connor's a bit pissed because it appears that Oliver lied about researching ways to get Connor the same immunity deal as Michaela. Oliver actually went to the FBI to do that. That's why the FBI offered the new deal to Connor. So under my assumption, this means that Oliver was a secret witness, not Gabriel, which we were led to believe. Now I know this isn't a huge reveal or anything, but can we just take a moment to appreciate the fact that Oliver did do something a little shady, so maybe all of my suspicions paid off? No? Okay, before we continue there, let's check in with Annalise real quick. She burns Wes's confession and Ophelia and Annalise's sister. I don't remember her name, so if you know it, comment below. Show up to support AK for tomorrow's verdict reveal. And back to Connor and Oliver. So yeah, Oliver got a deal with the FBI and was told to lie about Annalise telling Oliver to delete dirty pictures of Wes from Annalise's computer. Like, can we just talk about how ruthless the FBI and Burkhead are for making up literal lies from air? Like, wow. Anyway, Connor wants a divorce. No, not because he's mad, but because he wants to set Oliver free. Connor refused the new deal and wants to go to jail. He feels that he deserves it. Now, I can't say I'm surprised because, like I said about Michaela, this fits his character. Going off without some sort of jail time would eat away at Connor for the rest of his life. Anyway, you guessed it. This was a beautiful scene between the two. Oliver desperately begging Connor to stay and Connor committing to what's right. Yeah, we're back with Annalise and her mom the night before the verdict. And can I just say, I am so happy we got one last Ophelia pep talk. I just love how the show reminds us how important these types of scenes are for Annalise. Okay, now this next scene, I'm not gonna say too much about. If you haven't seen it, there's a link below in the description. And if you have seen it, go ahead and watch it again. But we get the closing statements and random government lawyer dude. Okay, I get it, whatever. But Annalise kills this. If Viola Davis doesn't get some sort of award for this performance, I will start a petition because this monologue gave me chills, tears, and just everything. Annalise completely removes her mask, and it was the dialogue equivalent of the scene in season 1 where Annalise literally took off her mask. Side note, Gabriel's there and he's watching this, so make a note of that. While this is happening, Frank visits the cemetery, and I understand why they showed us Sam spreading their baby boy's ashes in episode 13. Frank goes to apologize for the accident, and I'm not gonna lie, it was incredibly difficult to see Frank slowly crumbling throughout this episode. So after Viola Davis's Emmy qualifying performance, AK and Tegan talk, and finally, my girl professes her love for Annalise, and this is a scene I didn't know I was waiting for since we met Tegan. It is just so beautiful. So Tegan takes her mask off too, but sadly Annalise denies her, which I was like, come on. Anyway, the verdict is in. After Michaela, Connor, Laurel, Jorge, Burkhead, and Nate, the jury has determined Annalise not guilty. And I feel like the weight of the world had just been lifted from my shoulders. Like, I say this all the time, and it's one of the reasons I love the show, but I genuinely had no idea which way this would go. But it was such an incredible moment. So we're finally caught up to the opening of the episode, and Annalise is speaking to the press out front of the court. And remember when I told you to remember Gabriel? Well, I did that for no reason, because now he just takes the $87K Frank gave him and pieces out with a quickness. Then Connor gets taken into police custody and taken from Oliver. And I swear, if you need a good cry, just go ahead and pop on this episode, and 80% of these scenes will pretty much do it for you. There's this wonderful moment where Connor thanks Oliver for teaching him how to love, and from there, Connor is gone. Now Michaela tries to comfort Oliver, but he's pissed because she should be going to jail too, so he leaves. She tries to call Laurel, but no answer, and in fact, it's straight to voicemail. And there you have it. Miss Independent is left alone. Anyway, while we're on the topic of Laurel, she's getting Christopher ready, and by the sound of it, they're leaving town, which, yeah, fair. You should. And since we're talking about the Castillos, we cut to Jorge, and he gets murdered by a couple inmates. But we're back, and we're back to the front of the courthouse with Tegan. Now, because we cut from Laurel to Jorge, then to Tegan, my assumption is they arranged Jorge's murder. I mean, that plus the fact that they talked about a secret property worth millions, but I think it was one part to protect Laurel and Christopher, and then the other part to protect Tegan. And that was the series finale of How to Get Away with the Castillos. my friends. But we still have a little bit of How to Get Away with Murder left. That was super cheesy. So we're finally at Annalise's funeral scene, and we see Wes walking through the crowd, just as we've seen before. This time though, we see much more. Before that though, we're back in the front of the courthouse with Annalise speaking to the press. Tegan and Bonnie there backing her up, Laurel at the car preparing to leave, and there's someone familiar walking through the crowd. Bonnie notices and instantly tries to stop this person from doing whatever they have planned, and it's Frank. Just at this moment, Burkhead is exiting the courthouse and Frank pulls out a gun and shoots her just as Bonnie reaches him. So gunshots are heard, there's screaming, there's running, there's crying. Laurel pieces out and Bonnie cradles Frank until he slowly dies. Yeah, I think there's just something in my eye. So we're back at Annalise's funeral, and you know the person that's known Annalise for a really long time that's being introduced at AK's funeral? Well, it wasn't Wes, it was Eve, and she's old. Like old as f***. So we cut back to this Wes character, or whatever, and he's standing next to an old ass Laurel. So you guessed it, this is the future, and this ain't Wes. This is future Christopher. But before that, we're back at the courthouse with Bonnie cradling a dying Frank. Annalise makes it over, and apparently Bonnie was shot too. In all the chaos, it looks like she got caught in the crossfire, so after she realizes this, she begins to slowly die with Annalise cradling her, and I kid you not, I had no idea I cared for Bonnie as much as I did until I saw this scene. It was utterly heartbreaking and just real, and yeah, so Bonnie and Frank die. But so does Annalise, after a long life. Now, I'm gonna breeze over the closing montage because instead of my normal prediction section, I'm gonna break it all down. But behind this beautiful speech from Eve, we catch up on our Keating squad. Also at the funeral are an aged Connor with Oliver. So they got back together after Connor served his time. Like I mentioned before, Laurel is there with Christopher. Michaela is not present for obvious reasons, but we do see that she's being sworn in as a judge, and Nate is opening up a justice center in the name of his father, most likely using the 20 million he got to keep. Now for Annalise. Over time, she loses her mom, she removes Keating from her name, and she just lives her life. So who killed Annalise? Well, partially Annalise when she signed the NDA in the last episode, and also when she changed her name back to Anime Harkness, but in fact, life did. All I wanted was AK to live her life out on a beach somewhere and happy. And although we see AK went back to drinking, we know she lived a full life of laughs, triumphs, and freedom. And finally, we get the last scene. Just as Wes came to Middleton University for his first day of class, Christopher returned to Middleton for his first day as professor of his mentor's class, How to Get Away with Murder. And that was the series finale, friends. So where do you skip here or got here naturally? You know what I mean. This is the part where I give you my final thoughts, and in my opinion, I thought this series finale was incredible and satisfying. The acting was outstanding, and I think it gave us what we wanted to see. Like, it was heavily driven on fan service, I think. Now, I can totally understand why some people didn't like it, but regardless of that, let's break down my thoughts. First, the likes. Just like I'm bringing it full circle with the same shirt I wore when I did my first video about season 6 of How to Get Away with Murder, I love how the series finale brings everything full circle. My thing is, despite everything, it looks like every character got what they wanted. Connor served his time and still remained with Oliver. Oliver got to spend his life with Connor. Michaela is successful with 2 kids or grandkids, but she's living her life the way she wanted. Laurel escaped her family and father and protected Christopher, and Annalise lived the rest of her days out. And Nate, he got 20 million and honored his father's name. Now, I was curious as to how Nate got that 20 million, but as put so well by HFG here, he probably blackmailed the FBI, and that totally makes sense. He would ruin them with the mole, paying people to lie on the stand, their shady dealings with the governor. Yeah, they cough up that money real quick. Now parallel the opening scene of the series with the final one, and you have Wes's legacy continuing with his son. Now here's the big thing real quick. I mentioned in my Wes video that I would have hated this reveal, and at first I did. I'll be honest, I thought it was cheap, stupid, unrealistic, and quite frankly, I can understand why some people hated it. It was a blatant misdirection that set us off on wild conspiracy theories for months. But when I sat down and thought about what it really meant, I actually liked it. Like, A lot. West was framed for Sam's murder, even though it was self-defense. They tarnished his name and he never really got any justice, besides Frank killing Dominic, but with this, it's almost as if you were able to give him a proper send-off, both as a character and actor. I think it was justified, and if I'm looking at it from the perspective of an ending of a show, I'm okay with it, and there's just something really cool about this whole thing coming full circle like it did. On top of that, I love what Tech Unique said. Yet something else coming full circle, discrediting the witness, introducing a new suspect, and burning the evidence. That literally came full circle with this entire court case, and I absolutely love the thought put into that. Now, Frank. I mentioned previously that there was no way for Frank to make it out of this alive. One part due to the stack of bodies he's left behind, but also because the Sam and Hannah news would destroy him. He clearly went there on a suicide mission. You don't publicly shoot the governor in front of a heavily guarded courthouse and expect to get shot with a stun gun. So that was valid, and I love the symbolization of the death of the Keating name. I have similar thoughts with Bonnie. I feel like it wouldn't have been possible for her to move on from this. From telling Frank the truth to watching him basically commit suicide because of it, that would have crushed Bonnie alive. So it felt accurate. It felt in line with the character and the world. Now, I also loved Annalise's end. Pete Nowak specifically said that he wanted the viewer to really be able to fill in the gaps ourselves with the ending, and it's not like we're not used to filling in gaps and coming up with crazy theories. So the hand-holding could symbolize lovers, friends, or whatever we want. But it just shows that she was able to enjoy her life despite returning the alcohol. It also gives us, or me, the freedom to assume that she ended up with Tegan. She only denied Tegan before the verdict came in. She may have been turning Tegan down to protect her. I'd like to think they ended up together sometime down the line, especially because we get to see a beautiful moment of them dancing together, and she's featured on the photo board. And judging by the fact that she's not present at Annalise's funeral, we can only assume that she died of old age too. And I'd like to think it was after a long life with Annalise. They clearly focused on the main storyline at hand and wanted a simple wrap up. They can't be faulted for that, and I have to say, I'm completely satisfied. Let's be real though, no series finale is going to check every perfect box for fans, and I think the ending did do the show justice. Not only that, but it set the show up for a spin-off if it wanted to take it there. I personally would be okay without a spin-off, but we could fill in the gaps of everyone's life up until AK dies. We could follow Tegan after all of this while running Kaplan in gold. We could follow Christopher in the future and he can have his own How to Get Away with Murder case, which would be interesting because it would have to take place in the year 2055 or whatever, and there would have to be, flying cars and robots and stuff. Either way, I personally feel like they did the show justice, like I mentioned before. Now, did I love everything about it? No, but the likes greatly outweigh my nitpicks, which I'll say because I'm a Libra and it's my civic duty to provide a balanced opinion. So there were a couple things left unanswered, with the Mahoneys, the Castillos, Robert. What did Robert really do? And Gabriel kind of existed only to bring Vivian to town so she could tell Annalise about Hannah. The final episode did also feel a little rushed, and I would have loved more time or one more episode, but truthfully, I probably would have said that regardless because I didn't want the show to end. And then on top of that, things like Sally or the misdirection of the scratches being on Laurel's arm, those kind of led nowhere. And don't even get me started about the whole Snow White thing. That was a blind misdirection. Now, maybe Annalise was planning that at one point and it mirrors when she disappears the night of Ash's murder, but we racked our brains trying to figure that out, and the show got us. I feel had, but I gotta give it to them. They knew how to get us wound up and going on a conspiracy theory. But again, the fact that Pete Nowak is giving us the opportunity to fill in the blanks of Annalise's life, we can fill in those blanks anywhere we feel necessary. Hell, we already do anyway, and they closed up all the loose ends needed to actually end the show. And aside from that, and this is super nitpicky, and I think they did fantastic with the aging makeup, but I can't be the only one that thinks they aged some of them a little heavy. Laurel straight up look older than Eve. But again, these are nitpicks. I could give you a full rewrite for some of the series finales I've seen. Literal trash. I feel the opposite with this one here, and I think it did the show justice, as I've said 20 times. It concluded in a wonderful way, and it stayed true to what the show was and who the characters were. And looks like our good old buddy Nate was the true winner, right? The only one to get away with murder. With that said, we're gonna move on to the last of my top 3 favorite comments from my last video. This one is from Nick Make, and it's short and simple. It literally just says, "Just saying hi to everyone as you wished." Sounds like a comment for the top 3 comments for your next video. And I may be trolling here, but yeah, it is. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I know this was a long one, but it's a series finale, so, you know, gotta make sure every detail's in there. What did you think of the finale? Hate it? Love it? Meh? Comment below with your thoughts and give me your favorite scene of the finale. Oh, and thanks to everyone who joined the live reaction, and a special thank you to all of these supporters. Your support means a lot and it makes it easier to put out these high quality videos every week. If you'd like to support me and get featured at the end of the video, you can find me on PayPal at toddfullerproductions@gmail.com. Oh, and a special thank you to Hot Boy Z. You came through like Nate these last few episodes and you helped me watch the finale for the live reaction. You are the best. Finally, with How to Get Away with Murder ending, I had you guys provide your recommendations for the next series I cover. And that series is Little Fires Everywhere. And I am super excited about it. I've heard good things, always wanted to watch it, and now I'm excited to continue this crazy theory ride with you and this new series. Side note, that doesn't mean that's the only recommended show I'll do, so you guys may be surprised by some of the other recommendations that may start popping up. So stay tuned for that. Again, thanks so much for watching, and if you're already going through How to Get Away with Murder withdrawals or just want to go back and realize how wrong we were about so much, feel free to click on another video here. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up, it really helps me out. Then subscribe with a side notification bell. Until next time, shine on, you crazy diamonds.